Doing good. So I am so excited to have you on. We're going to be talking all about visibility. We're going to be talking about, you're a business consultant as well. So we've known each other for years, literally.
Yeah, I was trying to think.
How many years it's been?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But you know what? We've always supported each other. And, I just have seen your growth over the years. And you're so good at, just getting visible, right? Getting brands, getting, individual businesses visible. You have a podcast. So why don't you do the introduction so I don't miss anything?
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll
Thank you. I know. I was thinking that we probably have known each other for at least a decade at this point, probably more. So likely when I first met you, I was probably working in corporate, as we both were at the time. I was working in the New York City PR agency world, and my soul was slowly dying. I knew that there was something that I needed to do that was my own, that was different. And really that's what drew me to the person who connected us, which was Gabby Bernstein.
Oh my gosh,
we connected.
Right.
So I always say that when your dissatisfaction in life increases, so does your commitment to personal development and self-help. And that was what drove me to find mentors and coaches who could help me through, a challenging decision-making time. But now I say that, having been in the corporate PR world, now I use my powers for good. And I help entrepreneurs be more visible, be the right spokesperson, the most powerful spokesperson they can be for their brands, and help them connect with more of the right clients in an authentic, grassroots, really as close to word of mouth kind of way, because that's the way that we as consumers make decisions, is we want to feel really connected to the people who we're buying from. So I work with my clients to go through, an entire swath of holistic visibility tactics that I should also say have nothing to do with ads. So we're really going for authenticity and for service-oriented contributions to the conversations in our space.
Yeah. And so you do this in so many different ways, right? You have a podcast, you have a school, you host events, live events.
Yes.
So can you just tell everyone, if they don't know who you are, about your podcast, about your events?
Sure.
Because I just feel like you serve at such a high integrity and high way. And so many people, they have so much to give, but they don't know kind of how to, and you do it so successfully. You have different legs of your business. So if you can just go in and tell us a little bit about your events, your podcast, and then your school and what you're up to now.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, those are the people who I work with. Those people who are shaking their fists, that are feeling like not enough people know about me. I should be
and
more
all brands, known. Right?
Yeah, right. So my experience in the agency world really taught me that you can take these tactics and apply them to any different type of company. And that really has become my superpower, is extracting from my clients, no matter what kind of business they have, the power in their story and their messages and the elements of that are really going to connect with the people who need to hear from them. And so the way, like you said, the way that I work with people, or the way that people can learn more even about my work for free, is I host the Empowered Publicity podcast, which is all about the inner and the outer work of being visible. So, it takes a lot of, it takes a strong personal constitution to put yourself out there and be visible. And so we talk about the inner game, and we also talk about tactics for being visible. And one of the things that has worked really well for me, and one of the pillars of visibility that I teach in my business through the framework that I've developed, has been hosting events that serve as an educational opportunity and a networking opportunity for my community, but then also allow me to kind of be out there in a bigger way in front of a lot of people at one time, because it's a really viable and effective marketing tactic as well. And so the way that I work with clients is, like I said, I have a framework for visibility that spans the entire the entire breadth of things that are available out there for us for free, um, from speaking opportunities and events to collaborations like this and
Yeah.
alliances with other people who are talking to your same audience. And then of course the media, because that's the biggest mystery to people, I think, is how to pitch the media. And that's something that you've cracked the code on as well.
Well, I don't know if I cracked the whole code, but yeah, I've gotten a,
You were, I remember there was a period of time where you were like, I am going hard and I'm getting on TV, and you
oh
did it.
yeah, 100%. Yeah, I was like, that was so, I was like, in my mind, I'm like, I'm getting on TV, I'm getting on local and national TV, and I'm just committed to it. And I literally committed like a quarter of doing whatever it took. And I like what you said, like, it wasn't ads, it was literally like you're saying, like organic, like everything I
Yes.
did was organic in the way that, like, yes, I hired, help, but like I got up at 5:30 every morning. I literally reached out, like, very
Yeah,
organic.
you were on the phone,
Yeah.
the actual phone. And so you know what they call that actually in the PR world is they call it earned media, which I love that
Wow.
phrase because you didn't pay for it. I mean, like that's sort of the opposite is paid media, but you
Yeah.
earned it because you have something valuable to say. That producer was like, "Oh yeah, that's a great idea. Let's have you on to talk about that." You
So let's
earned
talk
that
about
position.
that. Let's
Yeah.
talk about that, Amanda, because I did not have, I had some YouTube videos, but I was not on TV. And I think a lot of people hold themselves back from like pitching either online magazines or getting on TV because they feel like, well, who am I? Right? I don't have any credibility. And like, I only had literally like, I think 3 YouTube videos that I was even like, okay to send to these, to pitch. But how, what are some tips that you would, you teach your clients and that you would share with these people watching my community of like, whether it's TV or print or online, like, how do you even get started if you feel like you don't have a leg to stand on?
Absolutely. So you don't need to have, a whole portfolio of clips or, previous experience on camera. If you do, you should always tell them that you do, but you don't have to necessarily, and you don't have to tell them that you don't.
Yeah.
So the key is to have a good idea because you could be plucked from obscurity if you have that winning idea that
Yeah.
tells that station or that podcaster or that magazine that you have something worthwhile to say to their audience. And your idea also, just speaking of the audience, has to be of service to the audience. So you have to remember that you're helping the producer or the editor of the magazine or whoever is the decision maker. You're helping them by providing great content. So
Yeah.
they are sort of like the audience for your pitch, but then you have to be thinking of their job and their audience because they have to answer to that whole community of people who are getting information from them. And they're very protective of their audiences and they want to make sure that you're going to provide something of value and that you're not going to be at all what's
Like
the word?
promotional, like self-promotion.
Promotional.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so good. It's like you're kind of making their jobs easier, really.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's something I say to clients all the time when they're having maybe a mindset issue around pitching themselves. Like they need you. That
Yeah.
that producer out there, all they do every day is have to find content ideas. They absolutely need you. They need good ideas. They need
Yeah.
sources.
Yeah. So let's talk about, right? So the pitching the media, TV, online, whatever. So you talked about the external, right? So let's talk about the internal because we are both, right, very big fans of the inner work.
Yeah,
And my belief is like, the inner work is really a game changer in a sense of really getting anything, right? Like opportunities, media, collaborate. Like it is so all about the inner game. And I've watched
absolutely.
you like do the inner game for like years now. And so tell me your thoughts about the inner game and how it works, like with media specifically. And do you teach your clients some things or do you do it
Mm-hmm.
yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. So I there are kind of three things to remember when developing like your media mindset. You, like I just said, you have to remember that the people out there are really just doing their job. You can take
Yeah.
them off the pedestal. That's something that we often have. I know that we've, been introduced to that concept of having people on a pedestal, and just remembering that we're all just human beings trying to do our best, and they are human beings with a job to do, who actually need people like us to feed them good ideas from in the trenches with the
Mm-hmm.
expertise, and be a contributor who they can rely on to provide polished, good information. So
Yeah.
take them off the pedestal. Remember that they have a job to do, and you're helping them do their job. That's the
Mm-hmm.
first thing. The second thing is that we also have been in our work, no matter who you are, you've been in your work longer than that audience member has been in that conversation. So even at the most baseline level of your expertise, you are going to provide them with something that could be potentially positively mind blowing to them.
I love
And
that. I love that.
yeah, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You can get back to basics. And actually, you should get back to basics, because that person has not taken that road that you've taken so far.
Mm-hmm.
They are still at the beginning. So they
Yeah.
need that early conversation, because they actually won't get it if you start talking about the experience from where you are now. So remember that what you have already is going to be mind blowing to someone new to the conversation, and that you have a, a depth of experience that only you have. And
Yeah.
so that is valuable to share. And the third thing is, the thing to remember about your audience, your audience members, your potential clients out there. It's the fact that they're searching for someone like you. And
Mm.
so if you are so encumbered by doubt and feeling like you don't deserve to be out there, or that it's scary, or you might be rejected, then you're actually robbing them of the opportunity to connect with you.
Mm.
And I think all of us would agree that to grow our business, number one, but also even on a deeper level, to help more people, to have a
Yeah.
bigger impact, it's worth us being a little bit uncomfortable putting ourselves out there. I think we would all say, like, yeah, I would do that if it meant that my business would grow and that I would reach more people and have that impact that I want to have out there in the world.
Mm-hmm. 100%. And I love that, because it's kind of like we self-sabotage a lot, and when
Mm-hmm.
when the
Yeah.
media
We
comes up
make
and
the decision for people. We're like, they're going to
yeah,
say no anyway.
yeah. And it's like, I love what you said. Like, you already know so much more than the average person, because you're an expert in your field, even if you started like 30 days ago, right? It's like, and it's so important, because when we think of the media, I think people can get just overwhelmed. They could feel like, oh well, why me? And it's like, no, it's like you have to have that inner dialogue, like that worthiness, that I can do this, I have something. And it's always like you're being of service, like you said, you're sharing something that they need.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So in moments, I guess, like, any other tips, because I know I've heard, like, you can have the editorial calendar and like all of that stuff. And that's what it comes down to, because what I'm hearing you say in the beginning is like, it's all about that idea, right? Like making sure it's a fit, like time frame. Is there any practical tips? Like, should we look at a calendar to see like what the topics are throughout the year? Like, anything you can give us, or so people can start pitching maybe now.
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, I love the idea of paying attention to, kind of, even I like to call it like the seasonal calendar or the consumer calendar, because we know that those themes are going to repeat themselves year in and year out. So
Yeah.
we may roll our eyes every time we hear like, oh, it's back to school season, but it's
Right.
predictable. Like, that that's happening, and you could custom. And so like, you have a baseline of like, here's, where my idea is going to germinate from. And now I can just add my own like special sauce and my perspective and my expertise, and tailor that theme to something that's relevant to my area of expertise and my work.
Yeah.
So you can take those. So yes, you can pay attention to the consumer calendar and what's happening throughout the year, but then you absolutely have to come up with something that is nuanced, that is unique, and that is based on the trends that are happening, like what's happening in the world, depending on what the state of the world is at
Yeah.
that time.
Right. Yeah.
And just customize it for that fact. Also, if you're going, like you went after local television, one of the things to really pay attention to if you're going after local TV, and I know that you had some TV spots that were actually outside of your geographical
Yeah.
area. So this kind of
Yeah.
flies in the face of what I'm about to say. But you want to make sure you play up your local connection if it can help you. Because local television, local magazines, they're mandated to cover local people a lot of the time. So if you can make a local connection, that's a great way to kind of get a foot in the door.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know in my experience, I was like, I don't care. The first person who says yes to me, I'm on a plane. And I think I went it was either like Charlotte, South Carolina or Baltimore. I don't know.
Yeah, I
But
was going to say, I thought you went to North Carolina.
I went everywhere. I was like, whoever's going to want me on TV, I'm going there. And that's the
I
thing
love
too.
it.
That's the thing too. It's like really being aware, like if I was so committed to that, and saying, okay, if I get on TV, because they didn't pay me, they didn't do hair and
Right.
makeup, they didn't do any of that stuff. Like that was all out of my pocket. So
Yeah.
I think it's like, if you really, and that I was so committed to getting on TV to do whatever it took, that it did. I had to pay for a hotel. I had to fly or drive down there. Like it's a commitment.
Yeah.
And, I was willing to do it for my first one or two segments because then I know it would have been easier to get more.
Yeah, absolutely. And I actually was recording a couple of solo casts for the podcast before I came on here. And so I kind of am realizing, especially now in this day and age that we're in, where things are so unpredictable and changing all the time, and our plans are kind of going to pot, and we don't really know, what the future is going to look like. I think that your approach to that is like, you set the intention that you wanted to be on TV, and then you kind of let go of however that ended up manifesting. And I think that we
Yeah.
really need to be cognizant of that as an option. That like we may lay down plans and have a certain perspective or certain vision for how we want things to come to fruition, but I think we need to be open to all possibilities for the way that goal comes to fruition, whether
Yeah.
it's like the number.
100%.
Yeah.
100. And I like that because it's like, you're not resistant, because it's like, if you keep like pushing and being so like controlled and manipulated, it's like you kind of, I say, block your blessing kind of thing.
Yeah. I love the way you say that. Yep.
Yeah. So what do you teach now you're not doing a live, right? Like a live.
I'm not doing
you
my live event. It will be in
Yeah.
September though.
In
Fingers
September,
crossed.
right?
Yeah.
So do you walk people through like how to get media? Do you help them with their story? Just tell us a little bit about that, and like, because that's coming up this year,
Yes.
and obviously next year you're probably going to be doing it as well. I don't know. I'm like speaking your business plan out loud, but I don't know what you're going to do. But just tell us, like, in those lives that you have done, you will be doing. Yeah, how do you work with people?
Yeah, so I love hosting live in-person events. This one coming up in September is called Pitch School Live. It's a day-long workshop on being more visible, finding your unique zone of leadership. Even before all of this was coming to, even before quarantine and coronavirus,
Yeah.
where, kind of the message is like, we need to come out as leaders. That was the plan, was to talk about leadership and how you can really step into your particular zone of leadership, how you can embrace the way that you're doing things completely differently as a rogue compared to other people in your space, and how you can lean into that rogueness to get more visibility. And
Yeah.
like I said, there are 3 pillars for visibility that I teach in my work with clients: collaborations and alliances, speaking and events, and media, which is the one I think that is the most mysterious to people.
Yeah.
And we were going to walk through what you could do with your rogue message now that you have cultivated it. So it's really sort of like a concentrated, tiny dose of what I do with clients on a longer term basis.
Yeah. So that sounds great. And let me ask you this. So if someone, right, so like a coach, say a health coach, right? Say they don't really know how to craft a story. There's probably like, and you let me know if this is right, like they can probably find so many different ways to tell their story, right? And how to pitch. Like they could pitch around food or fitness or like whatever it is. Like, so would you say there's multiple stories for one person or one, kind of industry? Like, could you
Yeah.
create that?
So there's really two different routes to go with your pitch. And one of them is, the profile pitch. People do want to know your story and how you arrived at the work that you're doing today. So you do need to cultivate your story that's fit for print. And I think that many of us can think of the people who we see out there, public figures whose backstories we know and resonate with, that we hear them tell that story over and over and over
Yeah.
again. And it doesn't even feel redundant to us. It just makes us feel like we know them already.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I've heard her tell this story. I know what she's going to say.
Right.
This is one of the things that I do with clients all the time, is help them figure out what version or what configuration of their story they should be telling out there, because it's a fine balance. You don't want to drag all of the skeletons out of the closet. You don't want to share anything that you haven't processed yet. You really only want to share the things that are relevant to your prospective client out there. So it really is a dance and a crafting that needs to happen for you to create that story. But that's one of the things that you could go out there with. The other thing, particularly for this example of health coach, is that there are things that you can teach. There are how-tos that you can put out there. So you might come up with a list or a library of how-to pitches where you then, sorry, I'm shaking the camera because I'm getting so excited.
It's exciting.
Right. Yeah. I love this stuff. So
Yeah.
there's so much that you can teach, but you want your ideas to be specific and nuanced and trend based. So come up with ideas for what you can teach to your community out there via different media outlets, and make a list of your how-tos of how to do whatever.
And so let me ask you this, because I know like throughout my career, relationships have been like, honestly, it's like your network is your net worth kind of thing. So is it the same in the media? Like, I know I've heard like, okay, find reporters, on Twitter, reach out to them, establish relationships. And I'm sure like in the media, people change jobs, obviously, right?
Yeah.
Like, any kind of industry. And what would you say with like developing relationships in the media, or how would someone go about it? Or do you think there's maybe it's not like that? Is it just the idea is the idea hold more weight than the relationship, or it just depends?
It depends. It depends. So different people in different kinds of media require different approaches from us. So a television producer or like a high powered, magazine editor, you might just reach out with your idea. They have so little time. They get pitches, hundreds of pitches every day. You may be well served to just reach out with your idea. A podcaster, on the other hand, or the editor of a blog that is maybe influential in a niche, these people are super passionate about what they're doing and super protective of their audiences. So those people, you need to create a personal-ish relationship with them. So I often suggest reaching out and just saying like, hey, I've been listening. I love what you're doing. Here's something that really resonated with me. Keep up the good work. And that starts to create, and I mean, this has to be authentic too. You can't just like listen to an episode and be like, I'm going to make a relationship with this person. Like you have to actually put in a little bit of time and effort. But those are the people, those are the people that you need to create a more of a relationship with. And the other thing I was going to say is that those are the audiences that will also feel much more connected to you. podcast audiences and those niche website audiences
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
they
And 100%.
trust that decision maker so much.
Right. Like you're going into their world and they're like the leader and they, yeah, it's the trust, what is it? No, like trust you factor.
Right.
Um, and I am sure I don't know if you've gotten this, but I know I've gotten this. And like, listen, my podcast isn't, huge millions of, not yet anyway, but like I have gotten requests where they will like send me an email that has like someone else's name, or they'll spell my name like Kelley. Like, I'm just
Right.
like, do you
Such a
have
turn
any?
off.
Yeah, such a turn off. And I'm sure you've gotten that too. So I think like those are, I mean, it's just the little things, right?
Yeah.
Like do your research. Kind of thing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And it also, do your research because it's meaningful to the person you're reaching out to, but it also makes it a lot easier on you as the person who is pitching to write a great pitch if you are a consumer of that content.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. So do you help people, like you help them with the stories, like, and I'm sure you have relationships in the media, right? That,
Mm-hmm.
you can lean on and stuff. So what do you offer, any kind of done for you services, or no, you rather teach the people how to do it? And so yeah, talk to me about that.
Yeah. So most of my services are collaborative.
Yeah.
So yeah. So I will always reach out on behalf of a client to someone who I know who might be a good fit for them to connect with. That's
Yeah.
a given. But by and large, I really want my clients to create their own relationships. That's what this is. That's what this is all about.
Yeah.
And that's what has enabled me to grow my business. I'm sure that's what's enabled you to grow your business,
Yeah.
are the people who you're connected to. So if someone comes to me and they're like, I just need someone to pitch podcasts for me. That's actually not really my client, because I know that, I mean,
Yeah.
like, and I try to explain this whenever someone comes and thinks that they just need to pitch podcasts, is that it really depends on what your goals are. You
Yeah.
probably need a whole strategy for getting out there, not just being on podcasts. I don't know what you think only being on podcasts is going to do for you,
Yeah.
but you need to be out there, with a confident message. You need to be out there with a story that people can relate to. You need to be contributing on a regular basis, and you need to be creating relationships with people who are going to be able to help you over time.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's kind of like, it's so simple, because if you compare it to something else, like let's just bring up the health and wellness, like working out, it's like, well, you can work out, but if you're eating like French fries every day and like
Yeah,
it's all kind of like there's certain like different things, right? That
right.
all have to come together. And I love that you teach people that, because you're really teaching them the skills that they can do over and over and over again. Like
Yeah, a
now I
process.
know, yeah, like TV, like how, I got on TV. It's like, well, now I know how to pitch TV and, how to go about doing that, because I learned it myself, like someone didn't do it for me. Like
Right.
maybe I had help here and there, but like it wasn't, I literally did it and I learned all by myself. And I'm
Yeah.
like so grateful for that experience.
Amazing. Yeah. I was so impressed that you did that. And I even remembered where, like where you went, that you traveled, and it really stuck with me that you dug in and you did that work.
Oh, that traveling stuck with me too, Amanda, because it's like, I was like, where, like my parents were like, where are you going? I'm like, Baltimore. Like, to be on like 2 minutes of TV.
It's so great.
So any last tips that you want to share with the community? I mean, there's gonna be people watching the replay. They can check you out on your Instagram, but any final last words, and then where they can find you?
Yeah, absolutely. I would just say that just remember that there are people out there, even now, like even in this like crazy messed up world that we think we're living in right now, there are people out there who are searching for you. And it's literally just about you raising your voice and putting yourself out there for them to find you. Like that could be as simple as it is. And so just do it.
Yeah.
Put yourself out there. You can't do it wrong. And I used to tell myself when it was hard for me to put myself out there, I used to say, no one's paying attention anyway. Which
Right.
is like, you know, we can fool ourselves into thinking that, but it's also in some way kind of true. You only need a few people to be paying attention in order for it to make a difference in your business. And you also are so, you're like in the churn anyway. So if you do something and you're like, oh, majorly flub that, even if someone watches it, it's like gonna be like so far down in their feed in just a couple of minutes anyway.
Listen,
So